Today, on this second Sunday of Advent, we hear the different readings, and God is helping us to prepare our hearts for his coming. He says, make straight the path. He gives us this image of going out to the desert and building a highway, filling in all the valleys and lowering all the hills, so that there is nothing between he and us, not even the slightest incline that hinders our way to him. And then we see, just the beauty of the image in of the second letter of St. Peter, and how one day with God is like 1,000, and 1,000 are like a day. Just the sense that when we are in the presence of God, when we are with him, we lose all sense of time. And we're just filled with joy and love in his presence. We also kind of hear those comforting words like that God is patient with us. That even, when we might think that he is delayed in his action or, being present to us, it's not a delay. It's his love and his mercy being patient with us, giving us the time, to come to that place of where we can say, Lord, I'm sorry, help me to be renewed. So just with this image of the Lord, making straight and kind of preparing the way, just invite you to do a short kind of mental exercise. Now imagine that the Lord has sent to you a messenger, that he is coming to your house, that he desires to dine with you on this day. And so you know that he's coming. You have time to prepare. You can think about what you're going to cook, whether or not you need to run to the grocery store, where if you need to wash your finest clothes and get ready, how you're going to prepare the way for him. You have that time. So just, think about, if you knew the Lord was coming to your house today, how would you prepare yourself for his arrival? What are the first words that you would say to him upon seeing him? And how would he speak to you? I think that can be a very powerful meditation to just kind of think about, what would my first words be? And when I see him, and then how is it that he would speak to me? But in our readings today, setting that meditation aside, the Lord gives us the image of a desert, that this is the place where he wants to meet us. We might ask ourselves, Lord, why would you give us the image of the desert? Why would we want to meet you there? There's nothing. There's no trees. There's no life. In the heart of the desert, it's just barren. There's only the ground beneath our feet. And yet, I think that's exactly why God wants to meet us in the desert, so that it's just he and us. There's nothing that we bring with us. There's nothing to kind of get in the way. There's nowhere else to turn, nothing else to kind of seek refuge, but it's just he and us. And so we can be present to him and he can be present to us. We can listen to him and we can speak to him. So he wants to meet us in that desert. But the reality is, when it's just us, sometimes we still bring with us other things, like our own imaginings or other ways that just kind of limit the space that God has to work with. We might say, Lord, this is what I want to talk about. This is what the answer that I'm looking for. Tell me if it's A or B, and then we can move on. That'll be good enough. We'll call it good. And so we limit the work that God wants to do in us. But the reality is that he is the all-powerful God, the Almighty, the one who we say, holy, holy, holy. God, there is no one like you. No one in this world, as good, as beautiful, as pure as you are. But yet, subtly, we know that goodness. And so we try to limit it. And we say, Lord, only do this much, and only take so much right now. And so we limit God with our expectations, with our thoughts. and other things like that. And so just kind of thinking about, our ability to be present to God. A person comes to mind. His name was Nicholas Herman. Nicholas Herman, he was a man who was a foot soldier in the French army. So nothing very significant about him. He just, said, okay, I'll serve in the military. That's what I'll do. So he did. And just kind of as a result of his simple, basic military career, he came to the conclusion, I should go into religious life. So he entered a Carmelite monastery where his uncle was. He became a cook. He had no aspirations to be a priest or anything else, just a monk. And he was satisfied to cook. So that's what he did. He's like, I'll cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I'll pray. So that's all he did. But, in his desire, to be with the Lord in the church, in the chapel, to be present to the one true God, this almighty God, he never wanted to leave that presence. So he developed what he called practicing the presence of God, so that when he was cooking, when he was running errands, when he was talking to anyone else, he would just know, God, you are present to me, just like you are present in the church. You are here and now as I cook. I can speak with you. I can talk with you. I can just be, with you silently in this moment. And then when we're talking or we're present to each other and someone else enters the room, we just simply, turn to them and see what it is they want. So it's like if you or I were talking, someone else entered the room, and we just turn our attention to them, but yet, the person we were just with is still in the room. And that's how he saw God. He's like, God is present to me. God is now present in this conversation. And so most people know him now as Brother Lawrence, just this simple monk who had this very profound teaching. And many people would come to him to seek his wisdom, to seek his counsel. And they would just marvel. They're like, you're just a simple monk. Like, how do you have so much wisdom? You're not a priest. But it was through that constant encounter with the one true God who is beyond our imaginings, beyond our thoughts. And so he had this wisdom that was kind of outside of this world because he spent his life living in the presence of God. And, I'm also just kind of moved by this thought of just the way that we limit our expectations in our encounters with God. Brother Lawrence, he did the same thing. When he decided to enter the religious life, this is what he said. He said, I decided, instead of continuing as a footman, to be received into a monastery. I decided to sacrifice my life with all its pleasures to God. But God greatly disappointed me in this idea, for I have met with nothing but satisfaction in giving my life over to him. So what he said is, like, I imagine that I should go into religious life. I imagine that it'll be boring, dull, and dry. I'm going to give all that boring, dull, dryness to the Lord as my sacrifice. And what he found was the delight of the presence of the one true God that desired to be with him, desired to be present to him, even in the simple tasks of cooking, running errands, and speaking to other people. And so, in a similar way, like God desires to do that in all of our lives, to kind of shatter our expectations, to shatter the way that we limit God. And so that should be our desire this Advent, is to, make straight the way of the Lord, cast out all of those limitations, the way that we say, God, you can only do this. We don't want to make him small, but we want to encounter God as he really and truly is. So in thinking of Brother Lawrence and this practice of the presence of God, I just want to share with you two moments from my week this week. So as I was just kind of going about my day. It was 3 o'clock and the bell tolled. And as soon as that bell tolled, like in my mind, I had an image of like a moment of silence. So people standing, silence for a moment of silence. I was like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. The hour that the Lord died for us. I can give him this time of silence and just stand here, be present to him. It'll be a good and beautiful thing. So I was, the bell tolled, and I was like, Lord, thank you for your love. Thank you for dying for me. And the bell tolled, and the bell tolled, and the bell tolled, and I was like, I don't want to be standing here anymore. I want to go somewhere else. And the bell tolled. I wanted to look at my watch, and I was like, no, I'm not going to look at my watch. I'm just going to be present to this moment. And the bell tolled, and it tolled, and it tolled, and tolled. I was like, wow, it takes like over 2 minutes. And it was just like, oh, gosh. But in that moment, like I realized, I love prayer. I love going to God in prayer. But I love going to God in prayer on my own terms. I don't like it when the terms change. So in that moment, like God gave me the opportunity, to open my heart more to him and say, Lord, in my own prayer life, I need to be more open to the way that you want to work in me. So then the next day, during my Advent meditation, which was a video online, I was kind of following it. There was the introductory words, and I was saying the lesson of the day. And the person was like, and now I invite you to just think about how Christ loved you from the cross. And to do this, I'm going to ask you to pause for 60 seconds. And I was like, no, here we go again. 60 seconds. So I was like, all right, I can do it. And then, so I saw the first image, and I was like, that's weird. Like, he's not on the cross. I thought he said to look, see how he looks at you from the cross. I was like, oh, well, I can kind of see what they're still trying to get at in this image. Then the image changed, and it was Jesus kind of scourged, wearing a crown of thorns. And like, I couldn't take my eyes off of his eyes, except I wanted to. I was like, no, this moment is too intense. But I stayed and I focused. And kind of through that moment, I just realized so often, like I'm resistant to the one thing that I want the most, which is God's love. And so it's like, there he is. He's trying to show me, he's trying to reveal to me his love in that moment. And all I can think about is, no, I don't want to look. And so it's just allowing him to kind of make straight the path, the way to my heart, to move out, to remove those weaknesses and those kind of insecurities. And so often we want God, to be safe, like as we approach him. But even that reminded me of the story of like Narnia, where Susan is talking with Mr. Beaver, and Mr. Beaver mentions that he's a lion. Susan's like, what? He's a lion? I thought he was a man. I think I might be a little, unnerved to encounter a lion. Is he safe? Mr. Beaver's like, no, he's not safe, but he's good. And so for us, like, it's similar. God is the all-powerful, the one true God. He's beyond our wildest imaginings. And so there's that sense of like, he will overpower us, but he's good. And we can trust in that goodness. And so like, I was thinking about other ways that we limit God. I think one of the ways that we limit God the most is by saying like, oh, I don't want to do that because God is going to ask too much of me if I do that. If I say yes to that, he's going to just pile it on and give me more and more. But the reality is, everything God has revealed to us is that he will never let us be tested beyond our ability. He'll never give us something we can't handle. And so we like that notion because it's safe. Like, it limits God. It says, okay, like, I'm not going to do that because he's going to ask me to do more. I'm going to sit here, and it sounds good. But the reality is, like, we do that. We limit God because even deeper down, where we don't want to look, is this reality that when I'm in his presence, when I truly go before him and don't limit him in any way, then I will become aware of just how weak I am. I will see myself for who I am in his presence, and that scares me. And so I don't want to go there. But the reality is, like, when we see our own woundedness, when we see our own insecurities and our weaknesses, it should just remind us of why he himself allowed himself to be wounded for us, to heal those wounds within us, so that we are not afraid, so that we can enter into his presence and know his love and allow his love, to heal those wounds that are in us. So that's part of, the reason why I invited you to do that meditation at the beginning, is because when we know the Lord is coming, we can prepare, we can do all of these things to kind of cover our weakness and make it something that we can handle, that we can manage. But when we come before him as we truly are, we can't go to the store, we can't run and get anything additional. The only thing that we can do is actually quite beautiful. It's to go to him. He's the source of all goodness, all truth, all beauty. And so when we recognize our own lack, our own weakness, our own insecurity, it's like, Lord, you can heal, you can make up for this lack, this weakness in me. And I trust you to do it, however scared it makes me feel. So we surrender that to the Lord. And the reality is, like, here and now, at this Mass, we're at the Eucharistic banquet, so far more than just a simple meal. He desires to give himself to us. And so now we have that opportunity to do that before him, is to say, Lord, here's my week, here are my triumphs, here are my joys, here are the good things that have happened, and here are my weaknesses. Here is where I need you to help me. And so we can be like truly present to him when we receive his presence in the Eucharist. And we can come before him without limiting him, so that he can change us. So that we don't have the limits of our own, like, Lord, you can only do this much, or Lord, I want you to do so much. And that in some sense, our desire for him to do so much also limits him, because he wants to do that much more for us. My encouragement for you today is, to make straight the path of the Lord to your heart, to cast out all of those different ways that we may limit God, so that he can have that direct access, that we are no longer afraid, and that we can trust in him, we can be steadfast in his love. And the beautiful thing is, like, as we approach the Eucharist, as we come before him in his presence in the Eucharistic host, our ability to be more present to him here strengthens us in our ability to be more present to him when we're cooking, when we're running errands, when we're talking to other people. And then the reciprocal is also true. The more that we're able to be present to God when we're cooking, when we're running errands or talking to other people, the more we're able to be present to God when we receive him here at the Mass. So this Advent and today, let us make straight the way of the Lord.